and my husband were so happy to be moving to a new town, away from all the nosy neighbours and drama of our old town. I found out about this town on a website, and luckily my husband loved it also. The move started off great. The first day we arrived, within an hour, my neighbour, who seemed to be a really cool, friendly girl, called over and invited me and my husband to their Halloween party they were having that night. I remember joking, telling my husband, wouldn't it be bad luck moving into a new house on Halloween night? But thankfully everything was going great. That night we decided to go into the local mall and choose outfits for the party. An hour later, when we arrived at the party, it was in full swing. I felt so happy that we got this opportunity to make new friends in such a great way. I had a feeling that this was going to be a great decision. Moving to this town felt so right. I was wandering around the house, deciding to let myself go, but as I walked down the hall, it seemed very quiet compared to the rest of the house. I heard some talking, and I know I didn't want to be an eavesdropper, but I tried to listen outside the door, but the voices sound muffled. As I peeped in through the gap in the door, I could feel my heart thumping in my chest as I could see the girl who invited me and my husband kissing. Then I nearly collapsed as I saw down on the ground a dead body with blood all over it. I slowly stepped back, but could hear clearly now. My husband said to the girl, "Don't worry, it was a brilliant idea, you emailing her that site address to look at, to choose this town, and trust me, I enjoyed encouraging her a lot to choose it too." The girl said, "But how are you going to get her to join us and become a vampire?" My husband said, "Trust me, did I ever let you down?" I felt like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't register what was happening. It all seemed so crazy. I knew I had to get out of the house, but as I turned, all I could see was a man smiling at me with blood rolling out of his mouth. The story of Jack-o'-lantern started in old Irish myth. There was a man nicknamed Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack was a very nasty old man who loved to play his tricks on as many people as he could. He played tricks on his friends and family, and he even played tricks on the devil himself. One evening, Stingy Jack invited the devil to have a drink with him, but of course Stingy Jack didn't get his name for nothing. He was too stingy to pay for his drink, so what he did was convince the devil to turn into a coin so he could pay for the drink. But after Jack turned the devil into a coin, he didn't pay for the drink, but decided to keep it. After a while, Jack allowed the devil to return to his own form, but under one condition, that he wouldn't bother him for 1 year. 1 year later, Jack tricked the devil to climb a tree. Jack told the devil he wouldn't help him down unless he didn't bother him for 10 years. Also, as part of this deal, the devil agreed to not take Jack's soul when he died. A short while later, Jack had passed away, but God would not allow such a bad person into heaven. The devil stayed true to his promise and didn't allow Jack into hell. As Jack turned away, the devil felt sorry for him, so he tossed him a burning piece of coal to allow Jack to see in the darkness. Jack had decided to carve out a turnip and put the burning piece of coal into it to light his path. Many Irish have claimed to have seen this ghost, which they called Jack of the Lantern. In the 1800s, when the Irish immigrated to America, people started carving the jack-o'-lanterns with pumpkins, which are perfect for carving the jack-o'-lanterns, which have become such an iconic part of Halloween today. Me and my wife are just an ordinary couple living on a pumpkin farm, trying to make a living. There was an awful smell from a certain part of the farm. It seemed to come from a tree near the pumpkins. We got experts in to check it out, and they couldn't find anything wrong with the tree. We had enough on our plate with trying to make money. We only opened the farm today for selling pumpkins for Halloween and couldn't afford any foul smells, turning off customers. As the smell kept coming from the tree, I decided to dig it up from its roots, hoping that would get rid of the smell. I suddenly screamed when I came across a dead body. On closer inspection, it looked like a woman was decomposing for a while. It turned out she was a homeless woman. The sheriff and police department are good friends with me, so changed the details of where the body was found to a field outside my farm. That way, it wouldn't affect the pumpkin business we have. No one would want to buy a pumpkin from the same field a corpse had been decomposing. It was a real-life nightmare that a poor, hungry, homeless woman who survived on pumpkins and lived in a tree died out here. Lots of pumpkins sold that weekend. The nightmare continued when I got a call from the sheriff. He said, "Stop selling those pumpkins." The results came back, and that woman's autopsy, it was the pumpkins that killed her. They were laced with arsenic. Someone has poisoned all your pumpkins. I froze, thinking how many people could have possibly made pumpkin pie or soup, etc. early. If they did, they won't live to see Halloween. Breaking news. In a small town in Nebraska called Newtown, there have been dozens of people fell ill and several fatalities that are due to be linked to this pumpkin farm. The biggest twist to this story is that there was a body of a dead homeless woman found a few days before, and it was said to the media from the police and the town's sheriff that the woman was found in another field nearby. However, the pumpkins in this very farm are poisoned, so we are issuing a warning to anyone who has bought them here. Please dispose of them and do not eat them, as they are poisonous. Don't even use them as a jack-o'-lantern. We will have more breaking news at the top of the hour. Peter Tracy, Channel 6 News, Newtown, Nebraska. The police never did find out who put arsenic in the pumpkins. But very strange things happened around the farm. I have witnessed tractors driving by themselves, and doors opening, and weird noises at night. Me and my wife are convinced that what happened in our pumpkin farm is something paranormal. Mary and their daughter Susie were so happy as they were going to a new horror theme house for Halloween. It was meant to have been like a real horror house you'd see in the movies, and there was even a ghost train in it also. They were amazed at the outside of the house. It was like a haunted mansion. They paid for their tickets at the box office and walked through the house, admiring all the Halloween stuff all over the place. Susie said, "I know, it's so cool." Mary turned around and said, "It sure is." Then a while after, Susie said, "I'm not allowed." Mary asked her who she was speaking to, and Susie said her imaginary friend. It was going on for a few weeks. Mary heard Susie talking to herself in her bedroom, but when she opened the door, nobody was there. Mary asked Susie what was her friend's name, but Susie said she wasn't going to tell her until after midnight. Susie found it strange, but guessed lots of kids had imaginary friends. When they walked out of the house, they were in a mock graveyard with ghouls, witches and goblins and all other sorts of spooky things. They walked around admiring it. The place had an eerie feel to it, but Mary and Susie were enjoying it. Susie got really excited when she saw a Ferris wheel and begged her mom to go on it. Mary was afraid of heights, but let Susie go on it alone. Susie was so excited, and when she was going around on the wheel, Mary took a photo of her. After the ride, Susie came down, and Mary was wondering why she was soaking wet. She asked, "Sweetie, why are you soaking wet?" Susie said, "Because my friend was hugging me. She was scared, and she was wet." Her clothes and hair were soaking wet. Mary just put this down to another weird tale about her imaginary friend, but she had no explanation what soaked her. But then things got weirder when she checked her phone and froze in fear. She could see a weird face next to Susie in the Ferris wheel cart that she was in alone. She asked her who it was or what it was, and Susie said, "That's my friend." Afterwards, Mary approached one of the workers asking was the face some sort of Halloween trick for the park, but the worker said, "No miss, sorry, I've no idea what that is, but I know every single trick we have in this park, and believe me, that is not one of them." Later that night, when Mary was at home, she was pondering on what made that weird face appear in the pic, and adding to the weirdness of the whole thing, Susie talking about her imaginary friend. Something clicked with Mary. Her friend wouldn't tell her name until after midnight. Her being soaking wet. Mary looked through her drawer and took out her diary she kept since she was 8 years old, the same age as Susie is now. She read, "Today was Halloween, but it was the worst Halloween ever. Me and my friend snuck out of the house after midnight and went down to the lake that was meant to have been haunted. We were walking over a plank of wood when my sister Amanda fell into the river. I tried to save her, but I couldn't. I had just ran home and pretended I was asleep all night." Mary froze in fear, reliving that horrible Halloween night when she was 8 years old. No one knew what had happened. The body was discovered a few weeks later, but it was put down to an unexplained death other than drowning. The words "after midnight" came into Mary's head again. She ran into Susie's room. When she opened the door, she could see Susie staring at a little girl that said, "My name is Amanda." Hello, my name is Frank. I have a story to tell you about what happened to me one Halloween night. Halloween is one of my favourite times of the year. I love the costumes, the spooky stories told about it and the horror movies on TV, etc. But most of all, I love trick-or-treating. One Halloween night stood out much more than any other one. So let me tell you what happened that very, very scary Halloween night while me and my friends were trick-or-treating. Me and my friends were just chilling in my house on Halloween, playing computer games. We were enjoying playing the games, but decided we needed more fun, so wanted to go trick-or-treating. The problem was we had no costumes, but we had enough pocket money between us to buy something cheap in the store. We bought our costumes and decided to trick-or-treat around my friend's neighbourhood. There surprisingly wasn't that many other trick-or-treaters on the street. We took this as a good thing because it could have meant more candy for us. Hopefully. We knocked on one door and a nice lady greeted us with a smile and gave us lots of candy. I was so happy we decided to go trick-or-treating after all. When we came to the end of the street, there was this really creepy old house that my friends dared me to go knock on. I didn't want to appear a scaredy cat, so I walked up to the door and knocked on it. I could hear something from inside, and then the door opened a little bit, and as I could hear it, it reminded me of a horror movie as I could hear the door creak. There were cobwebs all over the hall, and I thought, wow, they sure went overboard for Halloween. Then I got a start when I saw a black figure. They seemed to have some really creepy outfit on. They said in a weird voice, "I have lots of candy. You and your friends come in and dig in. I have lots of candy. You and your friends come in and dig in." I found it so weird, I just turned around and ran. My friends laughed at me and said, "Geez, did you see a ghost or something?" I told them that person living there is so weird. They were asking me to get all of you to come in and eat candy. They looked strangely at me. I wondered why. One of my friends said, "I thought you didn't know that story. I asked you before, did you hear any stories about any house in my neighbourhood, and you told me no." I said, "What story?" My friend said, "You're kidding about someone being inside there, right?" I said, "No, of course not. I saw them and heard them." My friend said, "That house has been abandoned for years. Legend has it that a group of kids trick-or-treating one night were asked to eat candy at the door, and they were all poisoned." Me and my friends were looking for something fun to do during the summer holidays. One of my friends had an idea. There was a woman living down a lonely lane about a mile from where we lived. Word around town was she was a witch. That's all we were told. She was a witch and to stay away from her house, even her lane. We were feeling very adventurous, and even as dangerous as the idea sounded, we welcomed it, due to the sheer fact of how dangerous and exciting it might be. We were just outside her gate when we noticed how creepy her house was. I guessed, no wonder it was creepy if she is meant to be some kind of witch. We climbed over the wall and into her garden and noticed a beautiful big apple tree with bright red apples all over it. My friend had a bag with her, so we started picking apples off the ground and put them in the bag. We all jumped when we heard a woman's voice behind us. It was her, the witch that everyone was speaking about. I knew because I was shown a photo of her before. I said, "I'm so sorry, miss. We didn't realise this was private property." The woman looked at us and spoke. "Nonsense, my dear. Why pick up those windfalls from the ground? Why don't ye climb up the tree and pick the big bright red ones, and when ye are finished, why don't ye just come in and I'll give ye a nice soda." We were so relieved that the woman wasn't mad and she actually seemed really nice. We climbed the tree and picked about a dozen or more apples, then knocked at the woman's door. She opened it and there was a lovely smell of apple tart coming from her oven. She said, "I just made a lovely apple tart for ye. Sit down and make yourselves comfortable and I'll get ye some tart and some soda." We all sat down and 2 minutes later the lady brought us a slice of apple tart and some soda. My friends started drinking the soda and eating the apple tart. I didn't feel like drinking or eating, but I pretended to, as I didn't want to insult the lady for her being so nice. I felt awful knowing the rumours about her being a witch when she was such a sweet old lady. A few minutes later, I saw my friends act really strange, as if they felt drowsy and wondered what was happening. I walked over to the door, but as I did, I could see the woman standing looking at me with what looked like a big black cauldron that witches have in movies. I could see a bottle of poison on top of the sink. I realised then she had poisoned my friends. I tried to scream, but no scream came out as I was so much frozen in fear. Then she spoke in a creepy voice, looking me right in the eye, and said, "Witchcraft."